So this video is going to take a quick look at what you can do with the first-person exploration kit Unity package. So a quick overview of the controls. Use the E or left mouse button to interact or pick up something, and use the right mouse button or the left shift to either examine the object you're holding or zoom in on something a little closer in the game world. The first object type we're going to take a look at is the pickup object type. Now, a pickup object can be any 3D object, a primitive or a model, whatever you want, that existed in the game world that the player can pick up and examine. So there's 4 different types of rotation that are allowed with examination. So we'll take a look at free rotation first, which is the default. And as you can see, we can rotate this can around in any axis that we want and fully look at every side and every detail of the object. The other types are full lock, horizontal lock, and vertical lock. Full lock is what you'd expect. There's no rotation allowed. So if I pick up this paper and I examine it, I'm moving my mouse right now and I'm not allowed to actually rotate the object relative to the camera. So the horizontal lock is similar, but I can rotate left and right, but I can't rotate up and down. And then lastly, the vertical lock is the opposite. I can rotate up and down, but I can't rotate left and right. So related to pickup objects, we have the concept of a putback location or a putback volume. So if we pick up this object, you can see there's this translucent, this is a debug version, but there's a translucent volume here, and that represents the putback location for the object we have in our hand. So if we put that back, you can see it goes back where it was. And what happens with this is that the object gets put in the center of the volume, and we put the volume a little bit higher up than the object's original location just to give it a little bit of a drop effect when we put it back. Regular pickup objects that can have a putback location, they don't have this debug volume. It's visually disabled. So if we pick up this can of soup, you can see the putback hint is where the soup goes, so we can put the soup back. Now, you notice that it gets set upside right every time. If we rotate this upside down and put it back, it still gets set upside right. That's because the automatically generated putback location is in the same orientation as the soup can when we put it in our game world in the scene editor. So if we put our soup can on its side, when we put it back, it would be put back on its side as well. The other option for a putback location is to not automatically generate it. So here we've placed the putback location manually for a roll of duct tape, but it's somewhere in the game world, so we need to go find it. So this says to check the cabinet, so let's walk over and check the cabinet. And up here we have a roll of duct tape. And you can see the duct tape, there's no putback where I grab the duct tape, but the putback location is actually over here. So we put back the tape and it gets set down nicely. Similar to this, we can have sort of a scavenger hunt event. So we have a missing cardboard box that's kind of indicated by this nice video gamey hint volume. So here we have a box that looks out of place, so I think that's probably our box. So pick up the box and go put it back, and we can trigger a little event to kind of reward the player for finding that object. Finally, pickup objects don't need to have a putback location. If you don't check the automatically generate putback location checkbox in the inspector, then there's no putback location generated. So we pick up this ball. It doesn't really make sense for the ball to have a specific place where it goes, since it'll kind of roll around. So we've created this little box for it to live in, but we can just throw it wherever we want.
Shoots it, and boom goes the dynamite.
Next type I want to talk about is the journal type. Now the journal can be triggered through any sort of 3D volume that you want. So this glass could trigger a journal if we wanted it to. So here we have something that looks like a crumpled up piece of paper in the bin. So if we interact with that, it'll open up a journal. Now the journal pages can be any style or number that you want. So here we have 2 journal pages that are just sort of like a straight forward piece of paper. And we can use these buttons to flip back and forth between the pages, and then use the X to close the journal. And you see there the flavor text for the interaction has changed to indicate that we just read that journal, so the player can know when they go to interact with another object in the world whether or not they've interacted with that before. One thing to note about interactable objects of all types is that you can configure them to require the player have 2 hands free. So this journal page, for example, or the journal pages, they're crumpled up in a ball, so you can imagine if the player picked those up, they'd need both hands to unravel them and read them. Similarly, we have this cabinet up here, and what we simulate with this cabinet is that both doors open at the same time, so you can imagine the player having to have both hands free and reaching up and grabbing both handles at once to accomplish that being opened. So we can see here it says you need 2 hands to open the cabinet and drop any objects that you're holding. So if we go ahead and pick up this glass and we try to re-interact with that cabinet, the interaction is no longer there because we don't have both hands free. So if I set this glass down, then I can open the cabinet again. The next interactable type I want to talk about is the audio diary type. And audio diaries are triggered when the player's reticle hovers over top of some object of significance. So here we have this lovely scenic cube. So when I look at this cube, you can see in the bottom left corner, there's some significant event that's being explained through an audio log. Now, if we skip that audio log with the X button, you can hear that the audio fades out nicely. Similar to the other audio diary we just looked at, we have the moon up in the sky, and what's interesting about the moon is that it's really, really far away, but we just configured the interaction distance for that object to be something like 500 units. So if we look at the moon, we get another audio diary. The next type I want to talk about is the static type. You can see here it says not all objects need to be highlighted, and they're just here for us to look at. So this is a very lovely painting apparently. So I can look at it and see, okay, it's the picture of Nepal in 2014, that's kind of neat. And it's just a thing in the world that I kind of get some text about. And you could also notice that it doesn't highlight. Most objects go this nice color of blue, which you can also change to any color you want or any shader. But this one doesn't go blue, and that's because in the inspector I unchecked the box that said highlight the object when I interact with it. Here I don't want to highlight because it doesn't really make sense, so the painting doesn't highlight, but it just says that it's a very lovely painting. Next we have the activate type, and related to the activate type is the inventory type. Now inventory objects aren't really interactable per se, but they are consumable. So here I have a key card and I have a door. So the door is an activate type object, so if I look at this card reader and I try to open the door, it kind of gives me an error message and says I can't, I need a key card. So if I grab this key card, it'll put this key card in my inventory. Now I have the key card. Now if I try to open the door again, it goes green and it opens and I can go inside the room. So the nice thing about the inventory object type is that we can create an object like we created any other object, but instead of making it a pickup object, we make it an inventory object. And then in the inspector, we just specify the inventory item type. So here we had a key card, and we also specified the quantity. So this was one key card, so we said key card 1 and gave it a sound, and we were done. Similarly, if we wanted to create another object type, so say we had batteries that we need to put in some object to make it work, we could have a 4-pack of batteries that had one missing and have it placed in one spot, and that could be a battery inventory object that gave you 3 batteries, and then you'd have to go hunting for the other single battery, and you can make that one also a battery type, but just have it quantity 1. So combined, when the player finds both, they'd have all 4 batteries and would be able to, say, solve a puzzle or something like that. One thing to note about the activate type is that it's the only type that actually requires that you write some custom scripts. So there's a base activate type class, and if you want to make something custom like this door, or there's another number of objects I'll show in a second, you need to actually extend that class and make a new script and then customize the activate function. Quickly explain the custom activate function for this script. The activate script lives on the card reader, so when the interaction happens inside the activate function, I just ask the inventory manager if the key card that's required for the door is possessed by the player, and if it is, I open the door, and if it's not, then I play the error sounds and lights that you saw. So an extremely basic example of an activate type interaction is this simple radio here. So when we interact with this, you can see the interaction text changes to tell us if the radio is on or off, and it just stops the sound. So very, very basic. Contrasting that with this complex radio, we have an animation that plays and multiple lights and multiple sounds. So if we look a little bit closer, you can see when we turn on the radio, the power button animates. Power button also has its own sound, the radio has its own sound, and there are a couple of lights that kind of flicker to provide a nice radio effect. Now just to take a look at some other types of activate objects, so here we have this button. So when we push the button, we have a light that comes on, an animation plays, and a sound plays. And you notice also that the interaction text changes. You can do that as well. So once a player has done something once, or if they're doing something a bunch of times, you can kind of change that to go along with the narrative of your game. Here we have a demonstration of a lovely video game toilet that shows how you can take one object, so we have one toilet in the world, and you can make it pretty complex by having multiple interactions that can take place. So these are both activate types, they're both custom scripts. One flushes the toilet, and the other one allows you to put the seat up and down. And these can also happen at the same time. So one thing we can also do is make sort of complex scripted events that are triggered by an interaction. So if we look over here, we see that there's an artifact missing from this pedestal, and we need to find it and put it back. So If we go over here in this sort of dungeony looking room, there's some ominous looking kind of spikes on the ground and some other stuff, a little bit Indiana Jones-esque. So if we grab this artifact here, it will set off a series of events. So if we look quickly, it looks like something's going to happen. Oh no, we can't get out. There's some sort of scary thing that happens here. And then now we get released. So once we're released, we can walk back over here and then I'll put the object back where it goes. That's the overview of everything that comes with the first-person exploration kit package. All the things that you see in this demo level are included, so all the textures and models and scripts and sounds are all included, so you can use those in your game or use them as a basis for new objects within your game. As seen with some of the more complex activate types in the scripted sequence with the pickup type and the door, there's really no limit to what you can do with the interactions. As long as you're comfortable doing a little bit of scripting, you can literally do anything you want in Unity. If you have any trouble accomplishing some type of interaction or something's not working for you or you need some help, please feel free to email me at support@wildfun.com and I'll help you out. Thanks.